Okay, so up to Hill of Gemara. We are up to, I believe, we are up to Nun Tesam Aleph. Okay, so we learned about the Maschila and we learned about the Marzev. And what we learned was that the Maschila has a chazaka and the Marzev doesn't. We had three pshatim in what does it mean the Marzev has a chazaka yet doesn't have a chazaka. One pshat is that I have a right to keep the Marzev, although the Balachotzer has a right to tell me if he wants me to relocate it from the right side to the left side. That was one shot. And in that shot, Toshvis had to go deeper and say it had to be speaking where the Maschila was completely level, so it didn't have to be adjusted. Or maybe what it means that the Balachotcha can move it from the right side to the left side doesn't mean where it's connected on top. It means where it's diverted to at the bottom. Then we had the shot of the Balachotcha has a right to determine the length of that marziv, but he can't illuminate the marziv. And then we had the question of whether or not the Balachotzer can build a building underneath that marziv. And the Gemara says he's allowed to, but he's not allowed to be oikeret legamri. The Gemara wanted to know if it's merely a question of building a building underneath it, why can't you do that by the maschila either? Why can't I build a building in my property that's not going to impact your maschila if you have a maschila there? There's no reason why I can't. The Gemara answered, because in this case, the maschila was made out of stone, and the vibration of the construction could crack it, and therefore the bala maschila, the bala gag, has the right to stop him from doing it. So that's where we're up to now, and we're up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines from the top of Nun Tes Amud Aleph. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Tzinor hamekalech mayim. Someone has exactly this scenario, an eaves draining water into his neighbor's property. And now the balagag doesn't want to release the water anymore into his friend's property. He decides he wants to block it up. The balachotch saying, no, I want that water and I'm entitled to that water. The Omar Lei, the Balachotzer tells the Balagag, just like you are claiming that you have a chazaka because you've made a financial arrangement with me to legally have the easement to be able to drain your eaves into my property, you think I just made that deal with you for nothing? There was something in it for me as well. I also have rights from this agreement. I actually want your water, and I bought your water. So I'm entitled to your water. So you can't, by you pulling away your water, you are reneging on your agreement. Itmar. Rav Oishi Omar Ma'akif. Rav Oishi holds the Bal HaChotzer could stop the Bal Agag from pulling away the water. Rav Chama Omar Eina Ma'akif. You don't have a right. I guess the deal was only that I'm going to put my drain pipe there, and as long as my drain pipe is there, you get the water, but you don't have a right to the water that will force me to remain in that scenario. So we have a machloikis here between Rav Oishia and Rav Chama. Incidentally, Rav Oishia was the son of Rav Chama. So Frek Toisvis, if Rav Oishia was the son of Rav Chama, why would his opinion be mentioned first before the Gemara mentions his father's opinion? So the Rashbam says it's because Rav Oishia was an extremely, extremely chashuv person. If you look at the second half of the second Tosfos, it says V'hod Demaskir Rav Oishia Kodim Rav Chama Oviv the Machlokes L'Vishoya Godol Yosy Midai. Rav Oishia was unbelievable Talmud Chacham. It says Kedomar Libon Shal Rishonim Kepasach Heichal Zeh Rav Oishia Rav Oishia B'Doyek Rav Meir B'Doyek. He was such a tifa mensch, people couldn't understand the depth of his understanding. So he had a machloikas with his father. So what do you do if you have a machloikas in halacha with your father? You know what you do? You go ask your grandfather. Ozal shayle l'Rav Bisa. They asked Rabbi Bisa, who was the grandfather. Amalu, and he paskin like his grandson, like Rabbi Oshia. Amalu ma'ak. Karile Rami Bachama. So Rami Bachama, I guess, from Oshia had a brother. Rami Bachama said, "Vachut hamashulush loy b'mehera yinot." A three-stranded cable won't tear that quickly. Who is that referring to? Rav Oshia, Benosh, Rav Chama, Benosh, Rav Bisa. They have three levels of 3 generations of Torah. That's going to stay there forever. As we say, Lo Yemushu Mipicha, Mipizaracha, Mipizaracha, which refers to 3 generations. Once Torah is in a family for 3 generations, it's a muftach, it'll never go away. Let's have a look at Tosfos' kasha here. Right at the top of the second Tosfos, Vachut HaMashiach Lo B'Meir Yinotik. For Tosfos, what's up is how many? There's tons of cases where 3 generations are in Torah. Why is this situation unique? Kama hayu shehein v'avosein v'avosein hayu tamidei chachamim v'lo kamar aleim, and the Gemara doesn't say related to them hachot hamasholosh. Lahacha hanu taima levisha shloshton rozeh. They all were learning together. They all had a relationship and learning together. That's a chut hamasholosh. But if 3 generations are all tamidei chachamim, and then like behavior, you're not thinking, well, you can go back to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and then all clash will have it. But they weren't. I guess they weren't all totally learning together. Sulam Hamitzri ein loy chazak. A Sulam Hamitzri does not have a chazaka, which is like a stool. It's a small ladder, a step stool. Hey Chidami Sulam Hamitzri. What is the exact definition, specifications of a small step stool versus a larger ladder? 4 steps of if a ladder has 4 steps on it, that's called a ladder. That's called a permanent ladder, which will make a chazaka. But if it only has 3 steps or less, it's not. There are those who say, b'derech haChasidus, that the word sulam represents the quest that every Yid has to be oila l'mayla, to steig in his madregas. That's why by Yaakov it says, "V'nei sulam mutza ba'aretza, v'roishem b'gei shemayma." Sulam is the bridge from Shemayim to Aretz. Sulam represents the 3 foundations of growth, and that's referred to. The Samach refers to Soymech Neiflim, which is the pillar of Chesed. The Lamed stands for Limud HaTorah, which is Torah, and Mem stands for Merkaz, the central point, which is referring to the Beis Hamikdash, which is the center of Avodah. So it represents Torah of Avodah Ugemilas Chasadim. So there was someone by the name of Rabbi Yosef Nechemia Kornitzer, who was the last Rav of Krakow before the war. Although his son was also Rav, and he suffered a severely vicious and brutal fate by the Nazis. Someone was saying it over last night, and I couldn't listen to it. It was horrific what the Nazis did to Rabbi Yosef Nechemia Kornitzer's son. But Rabbi Yosef Nechemia Kornitzer said that we know that Ala Torah, Ala Avodah, Al Gemilas Chasadim are the Yisodis of the world. He also said, it says, I believe it's in Pirkei Avos, right? It says there's 3 Ksarim, there's Keser Torah, there's Keser Huna, and Keser Malchus. The Keser Shem Toiv, Oila Al Gabeim. So the Sulam are the 3 things. Keser Kahuna is Mem, which stands for the Avodah. Keser Torah is Lamed, which stands for Limud. And Keser Malchus, a king is supposed to be benevolent. He's supposed to do chesed with his people. So those are the 3 Ksarim. But the Keser Shem Toiv Oila Al Gabeim, which is the 4th one. So a sulam with 3 ladders is a mini ladder. It's a sulam mystery. If you have the 4th rung, so a sulam with 3 rungs. You have the 4th rung, Keser Shem Toiv, that's already a permanent sulam. That gets you up there. I'm sorry? That would be a chakra. That's the tzuri. Zok Gemara weiter. Chaloina mitris ein loy chazak. Fragt Gemara an obvious question. The Mishnah does not give any description of how you know what's a sulam amitri and what's a sulam tsuri. The Gemara had to just a moment ago, but by the chaloin, the Mishnah says either it's a chaloin that's small enough that you can't get your head through, that will be a chaloin amitris, or if it's not, if it doesn't have a window frame around it. So for the Gemara, chaloin amitris ein lechazaka, my shnaga b'sulam, the loy mefarish. The Mishnah does not explain the difference between the sulam atzuri and the sulam amitri. My shnaga b'chaloin, the mefarish. The answer is very simple, because there's a machloikis by the chaloin. Since there's a machloikis, the Mishnah has to list it off. But by sulam, there's no machloikis, so the Mishnah left it to us to figure out. Amar Abzera. And this is, there's two pshatim in this Gemara. We're going to learn it, the vial, according to the Rashbam. Omar Abzera. We're talking about a sulam, about a chaloin tsuri. Tosfos learns this talking about a chaloin bitzri. But we're going to learn the Rashbam, a chaloin tsuri, which there is a chazaka. If I open up a big, massive window overlooking your property, you could mon me and you could shut it down. And if I have it for 3 years and you don't shut it down, then I have a chazak, right? Zokt Rab Zera, dat lamata midal ramis. Yesh le chazak. If I have a huge, high ceiling in my house, let's say I have 15-foot ceilings in my house, and I have a window at eye level which I could look out of, that's something that you have a right to object to because it's creating hezek riyah by you. I can now snoop on you through that window, and therefore, if you don't say anything for 3 years, I have a chazaka, and also you could also be moicha. You could prevent me from putting in such a window. But what if my window is at a very high level, like the windows in Bava, where no one could look through them because they're way too high? So just because I have a window there, it'll allow light to come into me, but it will not allow me to snoop on you at all because it's too high. There ain't like chazaka. I don't have a chazaka. If I have it for 3 years, it's not a chazaka. Legabe, what is it not a chazaka? Because if you want to build a house right near my wall and you're going to now block out my window, I don't have a chazaka to have that window that will now force you to move your wall further away. So So the chazaka is both ways. Ein le chazaka. I don't have a chazaka to have the window. And my neighbor, the balachotzer, has no right to stop me from that window because it's not hurting me, right? Even if it's above, I agree with you that but I have a right, if I have a chotzer next to your house, I have a right to prevent any window that's facing my property, even if it's a window that you can't look out of, which is a shtickle midastoim. You benefit from light, and it doesn't hurt me, so why should I be able to? Let's say that the machlokes between Rab Zera and Rab Eloi is just that. Could you force someone on midastoim? I have a right to stop you from opening up a window. But in this particular case, your window's not hurting me because you can't look anyway. Yet, Rabbi Eloi says that I could prevent you. So that's mashma that you're not koifing me on midastoim. Rabbi Zera holds koifing on midastoim. Therefore, listen, it doesn't hurt you for him to have that window. So we force you to allow him to keep that window because it's not hurting you. He benefits and it's not costing you anything. Rabbi Eloi said, no, ain't koifing on midastoim. Taka not nice of the balachotzer to object because there's no pain to him anyway, but we can't force you. You have a right to prevent him from making a window. The Mar Sover Koifin, Umar Sover Ain't Koifin. Let's not say that's the machlokes. Rather, the Chul Alma Koifin. So if Chul Alma Koifin on Mitzdoim, why is it that Rabbi Eloi says that I could be moicha, I could stop you from building a window on the second floor? The Shiny Yacha, the Omer Lei, I'm the Balachotcher, I say, don't tell me to Mitzdoim. Don't tell me there's no harm to me because your window's so high. Of course there's harm for me. Because you're a Yente, and Zimnin de Musvas Shashifa Tusach, you're going to set up a ladder underneath this window, and you're going to climb up so you can peek into my property. And therefore, the Kami will get up there, the Kachosis. So therefore, Don't tell me that what I'm committing is midas time by not allowing your window. It's not midas time at all. You could peek out, and I don't need you to peek out. So therefore, I don't want you to have the window at all. So it's no longer midas time. There's a Mishnah that says, I think it's in Pirkei Avos, Ha'omer shali shali v'shalach shalach zu mida benes, right? And then the Mishnah says v'yesh ha'imim, and there are those who say zu mida sdoim. It's a shtickle of radical machlokes. One man holds it's a very perfectly normal way to live. It's not even a novel. And the other one says it's mamish mida sdoim. Hard to understand. So some Rebbe said a very beautiful word. Shali shali v'shalach shalach. I'm a satna nechusid. You're a belzachus, and you come to me to collect for your bells and moistus. And I tell you, David, I love you dearly, but I support my community, and you support your community. So a guy comes to you, and he's collecting, and you tell him, listen, I'd love to give you. You're collecting for some moistus in Chicago, but I support my Toronto moistus. So Aymer Shali Shali V'Shalach Shalach, Zumi Debenis. It's fair. But the Yesh Aymer, if you only tell the guy that you support your local moises and that's why you can't support him, but you really don't support the local moises either, that's a midas nine. That's what Chaim Tzvi told me over once. Ahuda also lekamei Rabami. Someone once came to Rabami to ask this shaila: can I block my neighbor from putting a window up on the second floor? And what Rabbi did was a very interesting. What Rabbi did, I'm not sure why he did it, but Shadra Lekamei to Rabbi Abba Bar Mamel. He sent the petitioner to Rabbi Abba Bar Mamel, but he also told Rabbi Abba Bar Mamel how to pass the shaila. Omer lei Ovid lei Rabbi loi. Allow the Bala Chosser to stop the Bala Gag from making this window. So I'm not sure why he would have done that. Why couldn't he pass that himself? So I'm not sure. Could be it's like a case where a good door comes to town and someone comes to ask him a shaila and he says, "Yeah, ask your own." Right? Could be something like that. But otherwise, it's a little bit unusual why he would do it. Amar Shmuel Ula Oira. When we're talking about small windows and big windows, that big windows are something that people can object to, and therefore the person who places that window would have a chazaka. That's only if it's an inspection window. You have it because you want to look to a distance, see your fields. But whenever you're making a window because you want light, then even if it's a small window, I have a chazaka. You know why? Because if I make a window for light, that's a permanent fixture. A permanent fixture demands that someone should be moichet. And therefore, if it's la'ayra, even if it's a small window, there's still going to be a chazaka. Gewaltig. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's a difference in its physical structure. I would have thought that maybe if it's how would you know? How would it be obvious that it's for light?
Like a peephole, right? It's a tiny little window, but the light instead is smooth.
I hear. So that's. Let me see if the Rashbam says that. Let's look. Omer Shmuel, the last Rashbam before the Mishnah. Ulayra afilu kol sheyesh lechazak. Kaloina asu likanas mimenu or b'makim off to allow light in the dark place. Loiba inan chaloin tzuri el afilu kol sheyesh lechazaka. The chaloina asu loayra milsa dikfiusa. The chalayamim adam tzarich loayra. A person needs light every day. It's something that's not going to. It's a need that will not expire. The chivin she'asa chaloin zeh. L'chala yom masay, v'hayalay lebalchatzer limchos b'seich kimo. U'midalay micha ikal amemar de b'shoy asa. U'masnisin is lav b'chaloin ha'asu la'ayim ma'ir. Ela b'chaloin ha'asu lishmar ginoy supardeshim derech ha'chaloin. So you're asking me, how do you know from the window what it's for? Every window is for light. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the Metzias is. How would it be clear to a unless he didn't have any ginshur predation there. Maybe he didn't have any properties. Is it safe?
Window open to let light into the room which has no light from another source.
Oh, so if it's a room,
it's like a pitch black room, which is the only source of light. So it must be that's the reason.
So that's probably what the Rashba means when he says b'mokim ofel. It's in a place where it would otherwise been very dark. Gewaltig. Okay, gewaltig. Okay. Zogt the Heilige Gemara weiter. Zogt the Heilige Mishnah weiter. Haziz. Haziz is what we call a cantilever beam that sticks out of the wall of my house. So imagine the wall of my house is built right up against the property of my neighbor. So I always call the guy with the house Mr. Gag, and the guy without the house I call him Mr. Chotzer. Okay, so Mr. Gag had a beam sticking out of his house. A tefach, if it's a tefach or more, that's something that's objectionable, and the Bala Chotzer should object. Why do you have this projectile? Well, it's not a projectile, but this thing sticking out in my property. Get rid of it. If he doesn't, for 3 years, yesh loy chazak. And the Rashbam explains, Haziz atevach yesh loy chazaka, mishi yesh loy koisel samuch lechotzer chaveir. Mr. Gag, the wall of his house is built right up against his friend's field. V'hoitzi ziz tefach boileit mikoisloi lechatzar chaveir, and he has this beam sticking out, a minimum of a tefach, into his friend's property. Have a chazaka. And if it's there for 3 years, the ein balachotzi yochel livnoish sham binyan lister as is. He's not allowed to break it anymore. Let's say he wants to build a wall right there. He's not allowed to, because now I have my ziz, which is a surface that I can put stuff on. I can use it for storage. I can climb on it. The chulahai lo have a shavakle balachotzi lohoitzi ziz tevach bechatzeri b'loy rishusay. It's impossible that this ziz was there and the Baal HaChotzer wasn't agreeable to it because he would have protested long ago. The mission is about to say that I have a right as a Mr. Chotzer to cut your beam off. I don't need your beam sticking into my property. And I did it. That's a right. I have a chazak. I don't have a chazak that your property is mine. I have a chazaka that I have this easement in your property. Zok the Heilige Mishnah weiter. The Yachal Limchais, and therefore Mr. Chotzer can be Moich. Now, Macha might take, I believe, 2 forms, and let's have a look at the Macha. The Yachal Limchais, Kloimar Bolo Haitzis is Hefach Betchila L'Chatzar Chaveiroi. If you want to create a beam sticking out into your friend's property, Yachal Limchais Boy Bala Chotzer. The Bala Chotzer can protest. I don't want you infringing on my airspace. You don't say Zen What does the Baal HaChotzer lose if I have a beam sticking out a little bit? What is the big deal? It's a big deal. The Vada Chazaret. The Migu de Mishtamish Baal Hagag Beziz Roya B'Chotzer Vika Hezekriya. If I have a ziz, let's say I want to put something on that ziz. I want to hang something on that ziz. Right? I use it as a storage hook. I'm going to lean over from my roof. I'm going to lean down and over to hang something there. In the meantime, I'm staring at you. I have a bird's eye view of your whole property. There's a very significant hezekriya to the Baal HaChotzer if you have a storage area that sticks out of the wall of your house into my space. But pachas mitavach, if it's a very small ziz, ein loy chazaka, and therefore ein yochalim chis. Zok the Rashbam, pachas mitavach ein loy chazaka, shem yirtza Baal HaChotzer live no sham boina. So there's no chazaka, meaning I could build there and block it up. Mishum de lekopet. Because since there's no akpada, the fact that I didn't complain doesn't mean anything. The bottom mitavach loy choshev. Such a small little ziz, what are you going to do with it already? And therefore, who's in Yachlim we're going to see in a minute. Amar Avasi, Amar Rav, Amar Rav Mani. Amar Rav Yaakov, Amar Rav Mani. Hichzik b'tefach, hichzik b'dalet. If you made a chazaka in a tefach, you made a chazaka in 4 tefach. This is a very cryptic message. My karma, what does this mean? Amar Abaye hachinam. Hichzik roichav tefach b'meshach arba. Then hechzik b'roichav. What if I have a ziz? It's a tefach wide, and it protrudes 4 tefachim into your property. That's a pretty big ziz. It's going in pretty far. It's going in almost 2 feet, right? The halacha is, if I, as Mr. Chotzer, didn't protest, it means I'm agreeing that I'm allowing you to have a mokum choshev in my property, because 4 tefachim is a mokum choshev. Once I'm agreeable to a mokum choshev in your property, we know a mokum choshev isn't 4 tefachim. It's 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. It's 16 square tefachim. So therefore, even though your ziz was only a tefach wide, but if it infringes into my property 4 tefachim, that shows that I'm giving you a makom choshev in my property, and you can expand that ziz to 4 tefachim wide. You're not allowed to go deeper into my property, but you're allowed to go up to 4 tefachim wide. The Rashbam explains, what if your ziz extended 10 tefachim into my property? It was 5 feet. You can't believe it. It's a full-size porch. You're also allowed to expand it to a maximum of 4 tefachim wide, because that's a makom choshev. You don't automatically get your square. You get 4 tefachim wide because that constitutes a makom choshev. But if your ziz was only 3 tefachim long, then you're entitled to nothing more than whatever you have there. Because there I'm not giving you any makom choshev. I'm just not protesting to your little infringement. If there's a small ziz, there's no chazaka, meaning no matter how long the Baal HaChatzar is silent about it, he has a right to build up there and block it at any time that he wants. And the Eina Yochalim Chais, he cannot be moicha. So what does it mean he cannot be moicha? Who cannot be moicha? Doesn't mean that the Baal HaChatzar, Mr. Chatzar, cannot be moicha to the Baal HaGag to tell him to get rid of it, or it doesn't mean that the Baal HaGag can be moicha if the Baal HaChatzar wants to use it. You have a ziz sticking out of my property, I'll hang my stuff on it. Could the Baal HaGag say, get your stuff off my ziz? Right? That is the question of Omar Huna, Lo Shanu El Baal HaGag be Baal HaChatzar. That we say, Eina Yochalim Chos, that means that the Baal HaGag cannot tell the Baal HaChatzar, get your stuff off my ziz, because he can tell the Baal HaChatzar, he can tell the Baal HaGag, get my stuff off your ziz, I can cut it off completely if I want. So don't you tell me I can't use it. Avo Baal HaChatzar, the Baal HaGag, Yochalim Chos. But the Baal HaChatzar could tell the Baal HaGag, get rid of your ziz. So that's what Rav Huna meant. That Rav Huna says that's what the Mishnah means. That it's the Baal HaGag, the owner of the ziz, cannot prevent the Baal HaChatzar from using his ziz, but of course the Baal HaChatzar can get rid of the ziz if he wanted. That is the shita of Rav Huna. Rav Yehuda Amar afilu Baal HaChatzar be Baal HaGag eina yochalim. The Baal HaChatzar cannot stop the Baal HaGag from using it. So basically, Rav Huna is saying is the Baal HaChatzar can use it, but not the Baal HaGag, if the Baal HaChatzar doesn't want, right? But Rabbi Yehuda says they can both use it. The Baal HaChatzar can use it, and the Baal HaGag will use it. How will the Baal HaGag use it? He's going to have to lean over the side of his house to hang something on it. In the process, he's going to have a bird's eye view of his neighbor's property, which is very much a hezekriya. So the machlekes must be if hezekriya is really considered damages that the Baal HaChatzar can complain about. The Ma'asav or Shmei Hezek. Rabbi Yehuda holds, Rav Huna holds, it's Shmei Hezek. And therefore, the Baal HaChatzar can tell the Baal HaGag, you're not allowed to use this ziz. Because when you're using this ziz, you're looking over my property, and I don't want that. But Rabbi Yehuda, who says that the Baal HaGag is allowed to use that ziz, and the Baal HaChatzar can't stop him, either Hezekriya. Obviously, he's not concerned about Hezekriya. Lav Shmei Hezek. Everybody holds Hezekriya Shmei Hezek. It's real. If someone's snooping on you, that is Hezekriya. So if that's the case, why does Rabbi Yehuda say that I'm allowed to use it and the Baal HaChatzar can't stop me? The teretz is the Baal HaGag will say, I'm allowed to use the ziz. You claiming Hezekriya? Nonsense. There's no Hezekriya here. Why not? It's a tiny little ziz. It's less than a tefach. I can't stand on it, right? So I'm not going to stand on it and stare into your field. All I can really do is use it as a hook to hang something off it, and to lean over and hang off it. So l'may chazi l'mit l'beimidi. All I'm really going to be able to do is hang something on. Now your complaint is that when they lean over the side of the roof to hang something on it, I'm going to be staring at your field. You have nothing to worry about. Madrana apoi v'talinabe. Whenever I lean over the side of your roof, I'll always face the other direction, and I'll put it in that way. So there's no hezekriya. What stops if I'm turning around? Very simple. What stops if I'm turning around? You'll catch me. I'll be caught literally red-handed or red-faced. Because if I'm looking, hey, you're not allowed to look. So because of that, you have nothing to worry about. I could use it in such a way where I'm not looking. And if I look, you'll catch me. So I'll be embarrassed to look. So that's why you're protected. There shouldn't be any hezek re'iyah. That was the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. The idach, who held there was no hezek re'iyah? I'm sorry, Rabbi Yehuda also there was no hezek re'iyah. So that's the shita of Rabbi Yehuda also no hezek re'iyah. You know why? Because I'm not going to look. I'm not going to look. The idach, Rabbi Zeri holds there is hezek re'iyah. What do you mean? You're leaning over the edge of the roof. It's very scary. So you have a good excuse sometimes that you look because you were slipping, you were afraid. Once you have that excuse, now you look every time and you'll say that you were afraid. In other words, unless we're in a scenario that if I catch you looking, I caught you red-handed, then you could always look. Because if you have a loophole, because you looked on occasion because you were scared, well then every time you look, I can never catch you red-handed. Because if I call you out of it, you'll say, no, I was scared. So therefore, you can always look and there's a hezek re'iyah. So I guess the question is when someone has to lean over to use something, does he have that excuse that I'm afraid? If he does, then there's hezek re'iyah, because now you can easily look at his property and he'll never be able to call you out on it. But if you hold that a person doesn't get that scared, person wouldn't look, so then I can always call you out on it. So the machlokes is in this scenario, is there large enough of a chance that there'll be hezek re'iyah or not? And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda holds that there won't be hezek re'iyah. Rabbi Yehuda holds that there is hezek. Okay, Gavalti. Let me think a second.
You don't like it. If I have a right to use it, you don't like it, get rid of it. If you're concerned that
We're talking about the Balagag wants to use it. The Balagag wants to use it. Does the Balachotzer have a right to stop the Balagag from using it? Right. The Balachotzer for sure is allowed to use it, and the Balagag can say exactly for your reason the Rashbam explains, because you can't use it anyway. Right? What are you? But the question is, can the Balagag use it? Because there the Balachotzer can complain that I'm suffering from hezek re'iyah. So on that, the question is, can I get away with it? If I can get away with it, then there's hezek re'iyah. If I can always get called out if I do it, then it wouldn't be considered hezek re'iyah because I'm not going to do it. Tosfos asks the obvious question: if you have a roof, don't you have to have a gate around your roof? If you have a gate around your roof, how are you leaning over it? So Tosfos, see, we're thinking of like a picket fence where you can lean through, but a gate is a real gate. So Tosfos says an opening. There's always an opening to the gate's home. Tosfos, very practical. Tosfos is in this parak being very practical, talking about the slope of eaves, the construction of gates. Somebody asked me last night, I don't understand. If you have a neighbor with a gag, so there's going to be hezek re'iyah up on the gag. So you're worried when he leans over, it'll be hezek re'iyah? There's always hezek re'iyah. So there must be a metzias here. Maybe the gag is not used too often. I think we had svaris. That when guy's working on his gag, when he's using his gag, people know when he uses it. But if it's an occasional use to hang something, could be then I won't be aware, I won't chap, and then I'll suffer from hezek re'iyah. I remember having this discussion. Zok the Mishnah. Lo yiftach odom chalai noisav l'chatzara shut. I'm not allowed to open up a window. If I have a house that's facing the chatzara shutfim, I'm not allowed to open up a window there because now. So let's say I'm in a neighboring chutzner, and there's a chutzner shutfim that neighbors me, and the Gemara is going to be discussing what exactly the case is, but for now, we'll say there's a chutzner shutfim, and you live adjacent to it, you're not allowed to open up windows that allow you to look into that chutzner because you're stealing their privacy. Lokach bayis b'chutzner acheres. What if I am a shutf in this property, and I buy another house in the next chutzner that's right up against our chutzner? And I want to be able to access that from our chutzner. I shouldn't have to go around. The halach is lo yiftachena. I am not allowed to open up a entrance from my house that's in a different chutzner, the chutzner shutfim, into this chutzner. Although it helps me, my shutfim aren't going to be happy with creating another entrance to their property. It's going to cause too much traffic. What about Bona Aliyah al Gabe Beisai? What if I built a second story? Lo yiftachena l'chatzar shutfim. I'm not allowed to put an entrance with a little porch and a staircase right in the chatzar shutfim. I'm not allowed to do that because again, it's adding traffic. Elo imrata, but if you want, boines acheder lefnimi besa. You want a second apartment, build it within your house. Uboin aliyah al gabe besa. And to get into the Leah, you go through the main house. So what's difficult to understand is if I'm going to add another apartment and that'll be 6 more people that live in the chutzner, what's the difference to the rest of the people in the chutzner? If you made them a private entrance, if you didn't make a private entrance, there's still going to be more traffic. So the Gemara is going to explain in a minute that you're not allowed to add onto your house. Boin aliyah doesn't mean you're building a second story. It means you're building a loft within your house. So you're not expanding physically the size of your house. You're maybe making interior partitions to allow more people in the house. That you're allowed to, because in your house, you're allowed maximum occupancy. Up until now, you might not have had maximum occupancy, maximum density. So what you do is you cut your house in half on the inside, and now you can make a second apartment, or you can make a loft, but you're not modifying the external structure of your home at all. Otherwise, the HOA will be down your back, right? You're not allowed to do that. But if it's within the same house, meaning you're not really adding occupancy, you're just taking advantage of your existing occupancy entitlement, that's not a problem. Fact Gemara, my year l'chatzar shutzim. It says you're not allowed to open up a window to a chatzar shutzim. Afilu l'chatzar chaver nami loy. Even if it's a single chatzar without shutzim, you don't have a right to make hezekriya. It almost makes it sound that there's only a problem of hezekriya if you're hurting 2 people. But if you're hurting 1 person, there's no issue of hezekriya, and we know that's not true. Zok Gemara, you're right. Loy mi boy, the Mishnah is saying a chiddush. Loy mi boy l'chatzar chaver deloy. Never mind, you're not allowed to open up a window to peek into your friend's chaver, your friend's chatzar. Aval l'chatzar shutzim. Well, what if it's a chatzar shutzim, and not like I was learning until now that you're the next door neighbor? What if you are one of the shutfim? What if you are one of the shutfim in that culture? Or anyway, you have a right to roam around that culture. And now you bought a house next door and you want to open up a window, or you live in your house and you want to open up another window from your house into the culture, which you already have access to. Even there, you're not allowed to. The Omerle, because your neighbor will say, so no, maybe you should be able to. Maybe you should be able to open up another window in the chutzner, because I could say, soif, hakabois, it's tenui minoi, the chutzner. Anyway, I have a right to the chutzner. So anyway, from me, you don't have privacy. From the outside world, you might have privacy. But for me, you don't. So if you don't have privacy for me, so let me open that extra window. My neighbor can say, Ato idna, the chutzner, hava be'ina, it's tenui minoi. When you were roaming, this is how Tosfos means. When you were roaming around the chutzner, I had to be careful from you. I couldn't do anything private because you were there. But if you were in your house, I wouldn't need to worry. Now, even when you're in your house, I lost my privacy because you can look out from a window. Rishpama is another pshat where it used to be when I was in the chutzner, I had to worry. But when I was in my house, I didn't have to worry. With your window, you might even be able to see into my house. Someone did just that. He opened up a window to the chatzar shutfim. Yosy, and he told him, Amar loy, hichsakta b'ni hichsakta. You have a chazaka. The question is it after 3 years or is this right away? So the Rashbam says it's alter have a chazaka because it's going according to Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah and Rabbi Shmuel in our Mishnah, who holds a chazaka is right away. If you could be moicha and you weren't, you would have to be moicha right away. Remember, Rabbi Yehuda said that the reason why you need 3 years is you can get aspamia on back, but really the machal is really after 1 day you have a chazaka. So he said you have a chazaka, and therefore you have a right to keep that window. And they went to Reb Chia, and Reb Chia said not so fast. You got to fasachta. You worked very hard to open up the window. Now yiga v'sasim. Now close it up. You know you don't have a chazaka. Omer Rab Nachman said, the listoim la'alter have a chazaka. What does the listoim mean? The listoim means, let's say you have a window with a chazaka that you're allowed to have. When you have a window, your neighbor is no longer allowed to build a wall within 4 amos of your window because it's blocking out the light. What if your neighbor builds a wall to block out your window, you have to be moicha right away. And if you're not moicha right away, that's a chazaka for him that he had a right to build that. That's the other response. Lokach bayis b'chatzar acheres lo yiftechenu l'chatzar shutf. My timer, because now instead of 10 people having access to this chutzner, 15 people have access to the chutzner. So the other neighbors have a right to say we don't want that extra foot traffic. You're also adding occupants to the chutzner. A cheder means you're not adding on another room. You're just creating a private room within your residence. So you're not adding to the maximum occupancy that you're already entitled to. And then the li is that psoi, which is a loft, meaning you're not raising the roof and making a second floor. You had high enough of a ceiling that you were able to make a loft within your existing structure, and that you're entitled to, and therefore your neighbor cannot be moich. So stop here. Correct. You're adding livable square footage.
For that, but right.
Well, in the second apartment, you're not. You're just making partitions. But on the pasoi, but on the loft, you're adding square footage.
When I bought my house next door, the house was only for 4 people. Now,
I think the way we look at it is your house was always working for 6. You just didn't take advantage of the full occupancy. Now, you can have 2 houses that are the same size. One has 2 bedrooms. One has 4 bedrooms. But the guy with the 2 bedrooms has a right to make another 2 bedrooms because a house in this size, this structure, is made for 10 people to occupy. He could have this under occupied.
When my son finished his attic, no, the neighbor can't be mad at the.
That's right. That's right, because everybody has that access to that space. His house has that available, even though he didn't take advantage of it yet. Okay, we'll stop here.